and the traditional waiting for the stream to catch up after latency. All right, and looks like we are good to go on Twitch, and YouTube is also good. Excellent, and I can hear my voice in my own ears, which is really weird. Hello everybody, good evening or afternoon or morning or whatever it is wherever you are. I'm not doing live coding today, in part because this week was CareerCon and I did a lot of sessions, three sessions to be exact, about making an API. So if you were at CareerCon, you've seen a lot of my face as I was coding. And I thought it would be nice to do some code reviews. So we did this a while ago, and I really enjoyed it and I learned a lot. So we're gonna hop back into it. For those of you who haven't done code reviews before, or who haven't done them, if you've never reviewed code or had your code reviewed, the sort of general idea is that you want to catch things that you wouldn't be able to catch with a linter. So the point is not to be like, well, your style guide's weird. The point is to try and find bugs that might be especially sneaky. Trying to notice if there's maybe a way to do something more efficiently. So basically sit down, work through the problem, figure out the logic behind the code and the coding choices, and then see if there's any way to make it better. So, hi Jer, welcome. We are going to start with, I asked for volunteers in the, weird, GitHub's not reactive. Oh, you see I'm zooming in and it's not resizing this window. It's recentering it, but it's not resizing it. Anyway, I asked for volunteers in the Kaggle CareerCon Slack that was part of the CareerCon big event. It was very fun. Hopefully we'll be able to start releasing videos from it in the future. I'm not involved with production there, so I cannot answer questions or help you with that. But I asked for volunteers. Thulani says hello. To send me code that they wanted reviewed. And one of them was Harsh. And he actually sent me his whole GitHub repo. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to make this a little bit wider and then I'm going to recenter it really quick because it's bothering me that I can't see. Oops. Nope, not that one. Sorry, I got really big. Have you two been locked together? Okay, you go over there. You get small. I'm sorry. You guys are seeing the whole process right now. There we go. And now you, I want you and only you to be big. Okay, there we go. All fixed. Much better. Sorry about that. I just like zoomed in really fast. And he sent me his whole GitHub, which was too much to review. But I picked out this particular code thing to review. She says it's okay. Thank you. And it's on Twitter sentiment analysis for Twitter data using R. So, and then the second one that we're going to look at is in Python. So it's not all going to be in R. We are going to work with Python as well. And I haven't actually taken too close of a look at this, so we can work through it together. So right off the bat, I like that there's a nice table of contents and that there's a lot of description of what's going on here. I see that there is, so a markdown file, which is what we're looking at now. There's also a PDF, which I'm assuming is like the final paper. Okay, so this is a, it looks like a slideshow. Talking about the data. So I'll zoom out a tiny bit so we can see the whole slide at once. So the tweets were downloaded May 2018. The date of voting in Karnataka. Sorry. Which I'm assuming is a state in India. Perhaps that is also a city. I'm sorry, my Southern Asian geography is just not very good, and that's on me. And he was looking at political parties, so BJP in Congress, and then two different leaders, Narendra Modi and Rahul Gandhi. So Narendra BJP, Rahul Congress. 2,000 tweets for each party. Oh, I see. So 2,000 for each of the parties and each of the leaders, except for BJP, which got 10,000 tweets downloaded. Okay. Then he says, thank you for your coding workshop. Oh, you're very welcome. I'm glad you found it helpful. And then we have a sentiment scale where 0 is neutral, more than 0 is positive, and less than 0 is negative. If you're not familiar with sentiment analysis, basically it's supposed to tell you how people feel about something. Oh, and Karnataka is a state in India. Thank you, that's helpful. So this is sort of like if your sentiment is less than 0, people are not feeling good or happy. If it's more than 0, they are feeling good or happy. And if it's 0, you can't tell from the data. It's sort of interesting to have a multi-point scale. Usually people will have like a 3-point scale, so positive, negative, neutral, rather than sort of a sliding scale. But nothing wrong with that. The Insta Life says, glad I caught the stream. I'm doing well. Just implemented Elmo embeddings for Secret to Tweak system after we could probably every TensorFlow exception ever. Oh no. Well, I'm glad you got Elmo working. It seems like a good system. All right. So this is the sort of the data that we're working with, and this is a whole data project, so it included data collection in addition to the analysis, it looks like. And here we have the distribution of sentiment about Narendra, and it looks like it is actually a 6-point scale. So I might have personally adjusted the bin width on this histogram just so the bars were touching, and it looks more like a group, and it doesn't have like the sort of the teeth in it, the little spaces in between. Just personal preference. Majority of tweets indicate neutral positive sentiment. I would actually say, just looking at this histogram, that it's closer to neutral negative, because it looks like sort of more of the body of the distribution is below 0, but maybe we'll see some summary statistics in the code. People sentiment towards Narendra is largely positive. Yeah, it does look to me that this sort of like -1 range seems to be a little bit bigger than the +1 range. So, okay, and this is what I mean, so that the bars are touching. The sentiments are distributed normally. So this is the party that had 10,000 tweets instead of 2,000 tweets. We have more data here. Could be effective larger data set. That makes sense. 87 sentiment lie between -1 and 1. Negative sentiments have a small edge. Yeah, it does look like... So I probably would have done my bins just for sort of ease of interpretation. I would have done my bin so that the middle of the bin was on the point. So I would have done a bin from like -0.5 to +0.5, and then -0.5 to -1.5, and then -1.5 to -2.5, and so on, just so you don't have the sort of like you don't have that thing where the actual point that you're interested in is the line. I think it makes it a little bit harder to follow, but I do agree, sort of looks a little bit negative. These also appear to be pretty normally distributed. A crucial lead for positive sentiments can be observed. Yeah, so I would agree in this distribution it looks like there's a little bit more on the positive side, so sort of the shift of the distribution is more, oh sorry, it's mirrored. The shift of the distribution is more in the positive side, so this way. Whereas in the Narendra's tweets, it seems to be a little bit more negative. Sorry, I'm trying to make it so my hands match the graph direction. And then Indian National Congress, this looks like straight up neutral. Strong negative and positive can be observed, but the trail off looks pretty steep. And prediction, based on the sentiment analysis, not much deflection in the sentiments towards positive or negative can be observed. So I would agree, it isn't super skewed. We don't see, like, I would imagine if you did the same analysis on maybe some political candidates from the United States, you'd see a much more sort of like a bimodal distribution where there are not a lot of neutral tweets and there's a lot of very negative tweets and a lot of very positive tweets. So maybe India is a little bit less polarized than the US politically. I will admit, I'm not super familiar with Indian politics, which, again, that's on me. And then the final results, BJP was 104, Inc. was 78, Indian National Congress, okay, which is interesting because it looked like the overall sentiments were a little bit more negative for BJP. Which, I mean, sentiment analysis is not necessarily going to correlate with election winning. It's just sort of one thing that you can look at. So who formed the government? Inc. plus JDS. Oh, okay, so it's a coalition system. So this sort of sounds like a British government or like German Congress or Parliament, where if you don't have enough members to form the majority, you need to form a coalition with other parties to get enough members to form the majority. Okay, interesting. So that's sort of like the output of the analysis. She says, I'm curious why there are only about 10 people watching the video. This is an awesome live coding workshop. Oh, thank you. I see about 41 right now. Hi, guys. And the videos are also available afterwards as well, so if you want to go back and watch them later. And I know especially folks have mentioned that for India, this is incredibly late. This is like 3 a.m. for India. So I don't know, maybe I'll start doing more streams at different times a day. All right, so that is the analysis. Let's look at the code. Salma says, hi Rachel, I'm wondering, is there a standard rule to choose bins for histogram? There isn't. It's one of those things where I shouldn't say that. I don't know of one. I don't have, like, I've done some visualization in my work, and I've read a little bit of the visualization literature. My general rule of thumb is that I want my bins to touch, so that's one thing. I don't like the sort of like comb pattern. I think it's just a little bit harder to read. I like my bins to be sort of as narrow as they can be while still touching, because I think that gives me a better view of the distribution. And in fact, in general, I personally tend to prefer a density estimate over a histogram, but those can be a little bit slower to compute, just because there is some sort of like estimation going on. So I guess my general rule would be as small, your bin should be as small as they can be while still be touching. And again, I like them so that you have bins that include your points of interest, especially if you have like a scale and like 0 is a point on the scale. I like bins that include the 0. So that it's sort of like in the middle and not on the line. And that's just personal preference. That's my aesthetic. Ryan says, my rule of thumb is less bins than data points. Yes, I agree. That would be a good rule of thumb. All right. Okay. So, okay. So here we're installing a bunch of packages and then we're loading them in. I think require does both of these. And we're also clearing the R environment. If you're doing this on your personal workstation, I don't think this is necessarily a bad idea. But if I was working in an environment and I was using somebody else's script and it installed a bunch of things and also removed all my files, I'd probably be a little bit miffed. So I think this is fine if you're just like, this is how you're working, but I probably wouldn't do this for something I was going to give to somebody else. And I'm actually going to quickly check our require function. I think require will both... it is better to use than libraries. It gives an error message if the package is not found during package loading time. Yeah, so instead of installing and then using library, I'd probably use require instead. And that way people will get an error message and they get to decide whether or not they want to install the particular library. All right. And I'm keeping an eye on the chat, but folks aren't talking about stuff that they need me for. And then we are downloading a file. Okay, so this looks like a particular destination, and it looks like I don't know what this is. If you are just gonna like download a file, I would probably recommend saying what the file is. The fact that the URL includes like hacks makes me feel like a little bit uncomfortable with this code. So I would probably either, I don't know what this particular URL is and I'm a little bit scared to go to it. It feels maybe like a little bit dangerous to me. Like if this were code that somebody had sent me to run on my corp computer, I wouldn't run the code. And I might like find some way to safely check out what's at that URL. Samuel says, what about using package controls like Pacman package? Oh, I really like Pacman. There's also, Packrat, I think, is another R package control library. So that's also nice. Jay says, it's probably a key to access protected data. That's definitely possible. I see that we're also we also have so these are XXXX is clearly not the actual key. This is where you would replace it with your actual key. So we've got our keys and our secrets and our tokens for Twitter and the Twitter API. So it's good that we don't have the actual keys in there. That's good. Ryan says, so this is to download the private key. Gotcha. I probably would not distribute that publicly then. Just to protect your Twitter account. And then we're setting up Twitter OAuth. Okay. And then some of this is interesting. So there's some stuff that's been commented out a couple of times. I'd probably tidy this up. If you don't need this, I'd probably just remove it. Again, just to be a little bit prettier. Bubble Ride says, is Spacey any good for NLP? Spacey's really good for NLP. It's one of my favorite NLP libraries, if they have the language that you're working with. That's the biggest limitation of Spacey, is that they don't have a huge number of language models, for example. So if you're working with a language that they don't support. And I tweeted relatively recently, Inris just released her course that had been on DataCamp, and she's now releasing it for free for anyone to use. So as not to support DataCamp, and if you're interested in that, you can go and do some of your own research. I would personally, just at the moment, not support using DataCamp from my own personal moral standpoint. Okay, so we're setting a interesting. Okay, sorry. So we're setting a parameter number of tweets, and then we're using it to get all of these tweets. And we're only looking for English language tweets. That's interesting. I would have expected also like Hindi tweets, maybe. I don't know what the most popular languages in Karnataka are. And so there's a bunch of tweets about hashtags that weren't discussed in the final analysis. So I'm interested why these were kept and if they're going to be included in the analysis code later on. And then we've got, BJP, 10,000 tweets, and then the Congress Party and Narendra and Rahul have talked the 2,000 tweets there. So I would like to know why we got more tweets for BJP. There wasn't really a discussion in the Thingadoodle. There wasn't really a discussion in the slides that we looked at, and I'm not entirely sure what this project was for. It could have been for class or for a meetup, or I don't really know what the reason for doing the project was in the first place. But it does seem a little bit odd to get more tweets just for BJP than for any of the other instances. Oh, okay. Here is one thing that I personally don't like, and again, this is something that you could get with the linter. I like to have all my libraries installed at the top, just so that if I have to install things and deal with dependency hell, I can do that at the beginning of the project and then not have to deal with it again. Oh, I also am not a huge fan of printing out whole data sets, especially if it's 2,000 tweets. So I probably would remove this, because this is, so we've searched Twitter and we have our tweets here. And then here we just print out the whole thing. And if I were running this in a script, it would just be like, so I would probably avoid doing that. And then we are using Snowball, so we're doing a term matrix map, I believe. I always get document term matrix and term matrix, and the other one document matrix. I always get those confused. Sapply, where the function is get text. Okay, so this must be to parse the JSON and to get the text out of it. And oh, I see. Okay, so we're doing a lot of pre-processing steps in sequence here. Here, personally, I would probably use the tidyverse, and I would use use pipes here, just so it's a little bit easier to read. But we're removing punctuation. We are making all of the characters, wow, lowercase. We're removing English stop words, I'm assuming, because we're working with English data. We're removing retweet R and that. Okay, all that makes sense. I think that's pretty reasonable. And we're also removing URLs. Okay, I think that's a pretty reasonable. Okay, so this particular regex could possibly be causing problems. So I believe the alphanumeric span does not include punctuation. And if we are searching for HTTP, any numbers, any characters, I think that won't get us the : / /. So I don't think this will actually remove URLs. But actually, let me really quickly check the Perl what was it? Alphanumeric? Alnum span. Any alphanumeric character. Yeah, so that's only going to give you letters and numbers, so it won't remove punctuation. So I would go back and look at this, double check this regex really quickly, and rewrite it so that it removes URLs. And I'm pretty sure there's also R functions that will do that, maybe even in Snowball. Remove URL function. Yeah. CTM remove URL. Yeah, there's a function that will do that as well. And it looks like, oh, I see. Okay, so this function is, oh, okay, so this is the same function that is in here, so maybe it was copy and pasted from a question, but again, this won't remove this won't actually remove URLs, so you can say remove everything but it's not a space after HTTP, or remove alphanumerics and punctuation. So something to watch out there for, and regexes are just hard to write, so. The Answer to Life says, regex is literally the one thing I can never do without relooking up what all the symbols mean. I mean, same. And Carrie says, are you reading both Twitch and YouTube chat? Yeah, I am. I'm keeping an eye on things. I'm trying not to say hi to everyone every time they say hi, because some people have been like, you say hi too much in your videos. So, blanket hi. Hello, everyone. You are seen. Okay. And then we're removing the URL. So we will have URLs in our analysis from here on out. And that's just something to go back and work on. And again, I'm pretty sure there is a function in R somewhere that will remove URLs for you. I'm pretty sure you don't need to rewrite that. You may have to do a little bit of digging. It might be in tidytext. Tidytext might have a function to do that. All right, so once we removed all the URLs, then we create a term document matrix. This is what I always get backward, term document and document term. Chan says, what was the point of the sentiment analysis project? Predict election results or figure out what people thought after the election? So I think that this was previous to the election, and it was just sort of looking at the correlation. Roland Yu says, to remove punctuation from pre-processing, not get rid of the // colon. You know what? That's a very good point. I think maybe... Yeah, I think you're right. Unless... Sorry, so slashes or backslashes, one of them. Whichever one turns orange when you type it. One of them is the escape character, so you need to... it's a little bit harder to remove, and I can never remember the exact tweets. Zinni says, it's collected tweets on day of election. That's helpful, thank you. All right, so maybe this will work. Maybe we have removed URLs. But I also wouldn't call this function, if that is the case, I still wouldn't call this function remove URL, because that's not what it's doing. It's removing a URL once the punctuation has been removed. So that's not a super transparent function name. Okay, and then term document matrix as matrix, sort rows. Insta2. String reports. Okay, so we did all of this, and then we have a sort of a frequency count, and then we do the same thing over? No, this is different. Okay, so we've done it once for the Namotext corpus, and then we do it again with the BJP corpus, but we're writing over our existing objects without saving them first. So if I just ran this as a script, I might run into trouble. And if you were just sort of like working through this on your own and you were sort of saving some code out later, I think that would be something to watch out for. Also, at this point, we've done the same thing twice. So at this point, you can see here, we're defining the same function twice. So at this point, I would probably write two functions, assuming you want remove URL. So I'd write remove URL as a function that actually removes URLs and not just URLs with the punctuation removed. And then I'd write another function that takes in a TM map, maybe, and does all of this pre-processing for us. And that's just to keep things a little bit tidier and to make your life easier so you don't have to type or copy and paste and then change in every place. And then we've done delete status. I don't know what that does. Okay. So I think like this is fine pre-processing, but it could definitely use a little zhuzhing. Fufuzela says no comments. I've got lots of comments. I've been definitely saying a lot of comments. Okay, so I would also probably put these under different headings. So I'd do something like collecting data, pre-processing, and then sentiment analysis. So you can see that there's a different heading for sentiment analysis, which is great, but there's not one between collecting the data and pre-processing the data. And particularly if you're getting, is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 plus 6 is 50. So you're getting 25,000 tweets, and you are going to get throttled. So that's going to take a minute, and you don't want to rerun that every time. And also it was a specific day. So if I'm going back and I'm taking the raw data and I'm pre-processing it, maybe I've read my paper about how removing punctuation and capitalization data can also remove information about political affiliation, at least in the US. I don't know that maintains for Indian political affiliation. I wouldn't want to recollect all of this data. All right. So now we've got a new section, and here, so we're getting our working directory, which I mean, it makes sense if you're just sort of working in the command line. It doesn't really, not something I'd probably do in a script that I was sharing with other people. She says no comments in the code. Yeah, there aren't really any, but there is a full, like, what would you call it? There's a PowerPoint presentation about what's in the code, and we read that first, so I think that helps a little. But yeah, some comments would probably be helpful. And I've done a fair amount of sentiment analysis in R in particular, so I'm finding this not super hard to follow, but I agree. Good feedback. All right, I think we're setting working directory. So this is not going to work if I do not have this exact file structure on my disk currently, and I don't, and I'm guessing almost all of you don't, so I would probably avoid doing this. And like clearing everything in your current working directory, it seems a little bit invasive. I think it's fine if you're just working in your local environment, but if I'm sending my code to somebody else, I don't want to be like, I'm removing things and I'm moving you around and you've got to know that that's what's happening. It just feels a little bit rude. And then we're reading in some data with the positive and the negative words. So it looks like this is sort of dictionary-based approach where we have a list of positive words and a list of negative words, and we look at the proportion between them. And it looks like we're adding some additional words. Well, I guess I don't really know a lot about Indian political discourse, but it seems like maybe feels and freaking could be possibly either good or bad, depending on sort of the rest of the sentence, based on my knowledge of how to talk internet in English words. And then we have a function, which I'm just going to say, based on the other code we've seen here, seems like maybe it is copy and pasted for somewhere, mainly because we're using sort of import structures we're not using before, and we have a comment. I think that's the only comment. Yeah, I mean, that's like the fourth comment in the total file, so... which is fine. It's fine to copy and paste code as long as you are correctly attributing it and the license allows it. Okay, so we are going to lapply sentences of our function. This is sort of a weird code structure. Okay. Okay, so it's requiring some libraries, you're reading in some libraries, and then we're applying a function that we are defining. And usually you would use this sort of lapply structure with functions that are Lambda functions, or like little bitty things that you can fit in one line. I don't know that we need to, let me back up. From here to here is technically one line of code. And we have, in the middle of this line of code, an entire function definition. And this isn't like necessarily wrong, like clearly it works, but to me it feels weird. Like I want this function separately defined, just so it's easier for me to go back and find where it is. That's like my personal preference for code structure. And then, okay, and so here we are, we're actually, it looks like, repeating quite a bit of the same pre-processing we've already done. So we're removing punctuation, we're removing control. I don't actually know what that span is, but it's another span of characters in a regex. We are removing //d plus. So this is so one slash is to escape, the other slash is the command character. This is, I believe, any digit and then plus, so any number of digits in a row. So we're moving numbers, basically. And then we're converting to lowercase, and we have actually done this previously. And yeah, so we're applying this to a data frame that we've already cleaned. So this is a little bit redundant, and this could definitely be tightened up. And then we are splitting two sentences based on, what is S? I'm not sure. Something else that's interesting. So I was thinking, so maybe this function was written before Magrider was a thing, because they're not using pipes. I would probably use pipes here because there's sort of like a lot of repetition in this code. And instead of assigning something to the same variable multiple times, assign something to one variable and sort of pipe it through multiple processes at the same time. All right. And then we remove lists. Sometimes a list is one level of hierarchy too much. Sometimes it is one level of hierarchy too much. I agree. Okay, so this is more pre-processing. So we're looking at things on the sentence level. I don't know that I would look at things at the sentence level. I think I would look at things on the tweet level, because we're looking at individual tweets, and many tweets are going to have multiple sentences. So I probably would not split at the sentence level for this particular task. And then we are just looking through. I'm not sure how fast match is. I do know that this sort of thing where you're looking through a data structure of words and looking through a document and looking at each of them and all the combinations can be very memory intensive, or very, very time intensive. So I would maybe double check how fast match is at this particular task. I would definitely look for something that was actually C code wrapped in R to do this task, just to keep it snappy. And then, so match returns the position of a match term or NA. See, that seems like overhead. I don't think we need to keep track of the position. I think we can just return the count. We just want a true false. So we are getting, okay. So if it is, so we're getting a vector of numbers, and then if it's not a number, we return true, and if it is, we return false. So I'm guessing that we get an NA back for every tweet that does not contain, every sentence, because we split at the sentence level, every sentence that does not contain either a positive word or a negative word. So every sentence that does not contain a positive word will get an NA, and every sentence that does not contain a negative word will get an NA. So we're just, for each sentence, looking at whether there was a positive word or a negative word or not. And then, so this is only counting one positive and one negative word per sentence. Okay. Wait, what is this being applied over? Okay, so it's being applied over the sentence. We're L applying two sentences. Yeah. And then for each sentence, words. No. Okay. Sorry, I was wrong. So, I'm having a little bit of trouble following this. So we have a vector of words. We are looking to see if each word is in positive words and each word if it's in negative words. And we're looking over the whole vector. And then we are looking at all of the words in the dictionary for which match words, positive words, is NA pos matches. So my question is here, if I say, have a tweet that's like, good, happy, will good be counted twice or will it only be counted once? Jay says score equals positive word count minus negative word count. My question is whether it is the number of words in the tweet that are positive, in the sentence that are positive, or the number of positive words. So basically it's a token or a type thing, right? Are we counting that good occurred and that happy occurred, or are we counting that good occurred, that the first word good is in the dictionary and the second word good is also in the dictionary, right? Because those will give you a different count based on repetition. So Chan says, Rachel, you were mentioning how long a function match takes to run. How can we know that? By looking at source code? Also, do you spend time studying data structures and algorithms/CS? Should we? I would look it up. You can also do benchmarking. I think there's a really nice R library for benchmarking that I always forget the name of. But there's a whole chapter on how to optimize in Advanced R, which I would recommend, and I have my copy always near me. And you can just test it. Have you spent time studying data structures and algorithms/CS? Should we? I have. Mostly when I was studying for technical interviews, because sometimes data scientists are interviewed by software engineers and they expect that you know the things that a software engineer knows. So it was good for that reason. I don't think data scientists need to have like a deep understanding of algorithms and data structures. All right, Jay says, I think it splits a sentence into single words. Yeah, so it's... Oh, this just means space. That's right. That's just like one or more spaces. Okay, so we have individual words, and then... So my question is the order of arguments in match. Are we getting a vector of the length of the sentence, or are we getting a vector of the length of the dictionary? And I'm going to assume we're getting a vector of length of the sentence. And then for each index in the sentence, we're seeing if it matches in the dictionary. And then same for the negative words, and then we take the number of positive words and we subtract the number of negative words, so we could have a score of between the number of words in a sentence positive and the number of words in a sentence negative. If we have one each, we'd get a score of 0. If we had none on either side, we'd still get a score of 0. And then progress equals progress. Oh, I've never seen this before. I don't even know what a dot argument means. Presumably, I have no idea what that means. And then we're giving it the... Oh, right. So these are... So lapply sentence, which will match the first argument in the function. Then we have to give it the second argument and the third argument. And then... Scores TF is a data frame of scores, text equals sentences. So this will give it a data frame with 2 columns, score and sentence in that order. I'd probably do sentence and then score. And then it's going to return that data frame. Okay. Naman says, yes, you are right. A vector of length equal to that of the sentence. Okay, that makes sense. Something that sometimes people do that you could do is also normalize for sentence length, because a sentence that is 2 words, both of which are negative, probably has a I'm trying to think of a 2-word sentence where they're both negative. Bad, no. It's not really a sentence, but it's somebody tweeted a tweet like, no, bad. Probably they're not very happy. Whereas if they had the sentence, I went to the Chipotle and they had no guacamole and it was bad, does that have a stronger or a weaker sentiment? Because it probably has an equivalent sentiment, score. So you can normalize by sentence length, and I think sometimes that can be helpful. I don't know how much time we're going to be able to spend with this second project. Okay, so now we're... this person really likes Lambda functions, which is nothing wrong with it, but it does feel a little doesn't feel very R-ful, you know, it feels a little bit Pythonic or a little bit, I don't know, it feels like a little bit of a sort of a code accent, if you will. There's nothing wrong with it. There's just a lot of them. All right, so we're making it a data frame, and then we're getting so we're using the score sentiment function, and I also, I think I mentioned this before, I like the arrow for assignment in R. And then we're getting the summary, and then we're making a histogram of it. Okay, so we're just using the default bin size here, and I think I would probably tweak the bin size on the histogram. That's usually the only thing I change. I like the defaults on the ggplot histograms a little bit better, but that's just me. And then we are, I collapsed it. And then we are writing it to an Excel file. But just that one. Okay. I do like the SLXX library. I feel like if you're going to write one file to Excel, save it as an Excel file, maybe you should save all of them out. I don't know. And this was, this also wasn't the biggest one, so I'm a little bit unsure about this, this particular, and also, again, libraries at the top. I'm a little bit unsure about this particular choice, and I feel like this might be due to, this might be a mistake. And then we do the same things with all of the other data sets. And again, just because there's some repetition here, I'd probably write a function for this. Something like, score results or something that does all of these steps together, so you don't have to write the same code and then copy and paste and modify. Whew. Okay. Bubble Ride says, okay, excellent. I was talking about looking at helping with the scikit optimize maintenance. They need a new maintainer. That would be fantastic. And she just says, based on that sentence, I guess Rachel loves Chipotle and guac. It's fine. I was just trying to come up with an example. I actually don't love guacamole that much. Like on my hierarchy of sauces, it's sort of like middle third. There are other better sauces, most of which are French. Okay, so overall, like, it says what it does on the tin. It definitely does Twitter sentiment analysis. This feels a little bit like code that somebody would like work with locally, and I would probably personally, if this were something, and I know that this seems like a project with a fixed end date and not like a code that you would send to a colleague for them to run. Before I would do that, I probably would do a little bit of zhuzhing. I might write some more functions. I might actually save my functions in a separate file and then import them, just so your actual analysis is a little bit tighter, a little bit easier to read and understand. Yeah, that is my code review for this package. It was only this particular analysis. It was only 200 lines. I had a lot to say. I had a lot of opinions. Overall, I think it's perfectly good work, and it's mostly style things that I would change. The only thing that I would definitely recommend checking into and making sure that it is a good use case for this is actually this match function. And I'm gonna check it. Sorry, I just want to know. Oh, maybe not the best choice for this particular thing, especially since there were a lot of tweets involved. I'm guessing this might have run pretty slow. So I might use perhaps fmatch instead. This looks like a slightly faster than the built-in version. There's also so in Python, I like flash text, which uses a specific algorithm that I can never remember the name of. What is the name of the algorithm? It's something to do with tree parsing. Oh, no, I don't like that. Tree dialect structure, that's right. Tree data structure or search, I guess that's what I would call that. Right, so I might use even the this is a weird website. Can I go to the crayon version? Thank you. So I might use this instead, especially if you have a lot of things, just because it's probably going to be a little bit faster. And between fmatch and Radix, I don't have a good idea of which of them is going to be faster or more optimized, but I might actually, especially if you're going to be doing this a lot, I might do some benchmarking and see just what's faster for your particular use case. Somebody said, what word did you use here? Some more questions. Michael says, do you know of any financial language dictionaries? Nope. I would probably just Google that. Ryan says, calling guac a sauce just got you permanently banned from California. What would you call it? I guess it's a condiment. Okay, even in condiments, and like, there's probably like 3 types of hot sauce I would prefer over guac. Flash text is very good. Flash text is very good. I really like it. And I'll see what word. Oh, what word was that? It's zhuzhing. I don't actually know how it's spelled. Zhuzhing? Nope. Zhuzhing? It means to like, sort of like spruce it up. I guess like hairdressers use it when they talk about like, you know, making your hair look better. I don't know. Does anyone know A, how this word is spelled, or B, have a better definition of it? Yeah, thanks. That's a good question. I don't even know where I picked that up. I don't think my mom would say it, so I don't think I got it from my parents. I think I must have picked it up either in college or grad school. Yeah, okay. I will put that on my list of things to find out more about. Okay. So with our last 9 minutes, let's look at this behemoth. So this is a big notebook, and I've spent a little time looking at it previously, and my first piece of feedback is that this is just like a lot. This strikes me as something that this person was doing as part of like their own learning, which is fantastic and a great resource to share. Again, if I were going to send this to a colleague, I might prune it a little bit so it was a little bit more, tighter, just less code, less to read. But I guess also part of what I think a data scientist's job is, particularly on a team when you're working with different people, is to do like the model selection and to think about what approaches are going to work well for a project and then pick one. And maybe when you give it to somebody, you're like, this is the one I picked. I thought about other things. Here are the reasons why I picked this one. Or if you did like model comparison or some experimentation, maybe the results of that, and be like, based on these matrices, matrices? No, what's it called? When you measure something, metrics. Based on these metrics that we measured, this is the one that's going to perform best for this particular task that we're working on, and I have chosen it for you because I'm a subject matter expert and I did the testing, and here is the one thing that you need to know to implement. And that sort of like filtering, I personally think is part of the data scientist's job. So if I were building something for somebody, I probably wouldn't give them like, 6. How many is that? 5. I probably wouldn't give them 5 different approaches that I did. I'd probably give them 1 and then maybe send them a link to like, and here's the other 5 if you're interested. So that's my sort of stance on the we're not going to get anywhere close to through this. We got 7 minutes. This might be a 2-parter. We might look at this one second. So we are looking at a data set of churn on a telecom company. So churn is for companies that have customers, which I guess is all of them. Churn is when somebody is using your product and then they leave. And then, the number of people is the amount of churn. Fingerdraw says, would it be better to re-implement a research paper or pick new data sets and fine-tune hyperparameters? Better to re-implement a data set for like just in life. I personally think it's almost never a good idea to spend your time re-implementing a research paper unless you really want to understand what's going on in the research paper. They should have released their code unless they are going to sell their code, and if they are selling their code, then you can buy it, or use the API that's built on it. So have I re-implemented research papers? Yes, it has been for my personal learning and also so that I could do model comparison. If you are talking about for your particular path, I personally, when I'm looking at somebody's portfolio, we're just not going to do this one today. We're going to save this one. We'll put this one in the hopper because there's a lot here. It's a very rich notebook. And I just spent an hour on 200 lines of code. So clearly my ability to move quickly is not that high. I'm also super tired. So personally, in a data set, like a data science portfolio, if I see that someone has re-implemented paper from scratch, maybe in a different language, I think that they have a good understanding of that particular algorithm, and sort of have the computational literacy to read an algorithm paper and then implement it, which is that's not trivial. It's surprisingly difficult to take a paper that tells you what the code is and then create the code from the paper. So that to me is more like, yes, I'm good at model architecture. I personally am more excited to see projects where someone has tackled a new data set and started from scratch and done the data cleaning and done feature engineering and spend some time really understanding the data and then maybe training a model and doing some hyperparameter tuning. Because imagine I'm a hiring manager and I'm hiring somebody to work on a project, probably I'm going to want somebody that has good business sense and knows why they're doing something, unless I have a really big machine learning engineering team. I'm giving myself a headache by taking my glasses off. Somebody who has a really big machine learning engineering team, and we're like, oh, we just need somebody to round out our ability to work on X type of model, or we really need someone who's good at optimization research, or we need somebody who's got a big background in sort of agent modeling or whatever it is. But in that case, this is probably more likely that they're going to pick somebody with a research background anyway, so I don't know. I'm always more excited to see somebody pick a new data set and start from scratch than I am yet another ImageNet thing that does something that was at CVPR. And that's just me. Cheese says, are we going to talk about undersampling or oversampling this week? No. We'll talk about it next week. We'll do this paper next week. And Vamsi says, what are the best resources after Kaggle to learn about data science? Depends on what you're doing. Kaggle Learn courses are designed to be sort of fast to get you started and to serve as a reference. They're not really going to give you deep math background, and they're not really going to go into sort of the pure machine learning research if that's something that you're interested in. It really depends. Once you sort of are comfortable with your coding language and have started working on some projects, the specific thing that's going to be the most helpful for you is it's a big field. There's lots of things. Sorry for being vague. I always recommend that people work on projects, and then in the course of the project, you'll sort of find the holes in the basket of machine learning knowledge weaving, I guess. I don't know, guys. It's been a really long week. It's been a really long couple of weeks. I've been traveling and on the road and then doing career conference, so I might wrap it up here. We have a spelling. It is zhuzhing, ZHUZHING, zhuzhing. To make something more interesting or attractive, the stylist said he would zhuzh up the outfit with some jewelry. Interesting. And there's a Merriam-Webster little thing. February 2018, Queer Eye, and Carson Kressley. Oh, okay, so it's from the sort of the original Queer Eye, because anyway, if you're not familiar, Queer Eye is a makeover show that's a remake of an earlier makeover show where 4 gay men, it's the same 5. A group of gay men who are experts in different areas go and help somebody get their life on track. And it looks like that's where it came from. And I have watched Queer Eye, so that could be where I got it from. Thank you for solving the mystery, Carrie. So I am going to call it there, I think. I hope you guys have a great weekend. And yes, I definitely do want to work on this notebook. Yeah, there we go. This notebook next week. I promised I would, so I am going to. And again, it is taking a second to load. You can see there's a lot going on here, so we will have plenty to talk about. And we will do that next week. So next week, 4 p.m., same time. And I'm also going to be doing my usual, what's it called? The thing I do. My usual reading group at 9 a.m. Pacific on Wednesday. So I will see you guys there. All right. Bye. I will talk to you guys later. I just got to figure out where my streaming software is. There we go. Bye.